Hello everyone, and welcome to Planet Zootorial. This is an interactive tutorial series where you will be able to create this in the end. We are going to go there via landscaping, pathing, barriers, buildings, and also foliage, and you will be able to build alongside me with the blueprint provided in the description down below. But now let's jump into the episode and have some fun. Hey there, and welcome back to the next episode of Zootorials. We are in the 4th episode already. This episode is about facilities and building in terms of really creative building, nice looking buildings, how you can use the tools in the building options and the scenery items. We won't get too crazy because it's real time. I don't want to make this too heavy for you guys. You can, if you want to see some crazy stuff, check out my speed builds. If you want to build alongside me, download this blueprint of the finished version, which I show you now. So this is how it looks in the end. But if you want to build alongside me, download this from the description down below, and you will be able to interactively build alongside me and create the same thing to figure out how it worked and whatnot. So yeah, first 3 episodes were about landscaping, pathing, and barriers and habitat boundaries in general. Now this episode will be all about buildings, as I said, and facilities. So there are a few things which we still have some issues about. We can't get any animals, we can't get any energy, we can't get anything because we have no facilities. Facilities are something new to the Planet franchise in terms of that you need them by heart. And in this game, you will use them according to what the needs are for the dedicated area you are in. One thing you always will need is some kind of stuff for your keepers. Can I basically deactivate the blueprints out of here? Because I don't want to show the blueprints. Is there an option to not show the blueprints? They are pretty annoying. Anyways, I want to have the bare bone buildings first. You can always use the blueprints if you guys don't want to build yourself. But since this is a tutorial about building, it will make sense to build it. Again, most of the buildings will not be available from the beginning for you guys. So you might want to make sure to check this out in Sandbox to learn. But yeah. So first thing we are going to build here is a keeper hut. The reason for me why I chose the keeper hut over here is basically because I figured that the keeper hut is thing that makes the most sense, because your stuff will need this to feed the animals. So we are going to place this one. I think I'm going to place this one. Just come on, go in just a bit off. Okay, well, I just want to kind of create a very, very tight connection here. There we go. And why is this creating? Okay, you might want to... Okay, you know what we do? We just change this with pathing real quick. Again, this is also planned, as I said, because this is always a bit more tricky. So what you want to do is delete this first and then use the facilities to create the pathing in front. So I'm using the keeper hut again and adjust this to the position I want to have it. Drag it off. Okay, I think I want to go until over here. Now it created this grid over here. Now we need also a staff room where the people can go in and relax for a bit. What we will also need for the whole system is a trading center, which I'm going to put down. Oh, where's the trading center? Trading center, where are you? Research center. You know what? We haven't talked about this anyways. You can always type in what you're looking for, and then it should appear in your area as well. Now, I've put this down here. This is all we need in this area. Now, I do show you some more facilities. We are not going to build some crazy scenery around in this episode, but I just want to talk about these things because they are very important for the game. So now we have the keeper hut, which is for preparing food, with the staff center, staff room, where they can relax a little bit, get more energy back, and also train. We have the trade center. This is where you get your animals from. And then we have some more stuff. And we have, by name, we have the quarantine. We have the research center. We have also the vet center. And we also have the workshop. These are the ones that we have as staff rooms as well. Now, what do they do? So the quarantine does basically what you would expect. If there's an animal having a disease and you do want to make sure that your other animals stay healthy, put your animal into here and it won't be able to infect the other ones. The research center is meant for the vet research. So the veterinarians can go in here and do their research for the animals and basically find out about species, get more enrichment items and all that kind of stuff. Then we have the vet center. This is not for research, obviously. This is where they actually surge the animals. If they have an injury or stuff, they bring them in here and surge them and fix their issues, so to say. And we have the workshop, which is for the mechanics in the game. The mechanics will then use it to research different items. Great. Now, we don't always have only the buildings, we also have some other things, the utilities, and this is also very important. We have 3 different types of energy utilities. We have the wind turbine, we have a transformer, and we have a solar panel. These are very important when it comes to providing energy to your rooms and also how much they affect an area. The transformer has the most power, however it's not clean, while the wind turbine is the most cleanest one, has kind of a small footprint, but it also has a small radius. So now we use a transformer over here first of all. And as you can see, it shows you this radius and how many buildings would be inside this one. So if I'm putting this here, you can see I would miss out on 1 building, would I? No, it's actually in. So we could actually build this transformer. I want to rotate this one like this. And we also need the water treatment. As you can see, same thing here. The radius is basically set. And it only needs to touch the water volume. That's enough. You don't need to have the whole water volume covered. It's enough if you just touch it. So I want to put this one over here. Great. Now I've created this little bit of a center, so to say, where our staff members can be. Now, the one thing I didn't like is the pathing over here. I just want to change the pathing again. This is pretty simple. Just delete it and connect it again. It can be as easy as that. Oh, I just used the wrong texture. Here we go. And we basically also want to connect these 2 things. Hello, can we do this? Yes. And we create a connection over here, which is kind of ugly. Again, as we learned, we can always smooth it out. Here we go. That looks a lot nicer now. So we have created this stuff area. Everything is connected. All facilities you need are in here. So I put them a little bit more away because we are not going to use them in here. We need them to make sure that the habitat later on works. I just put them a bit further off and connect them quickly with the path because I basically want to make sure that this works. So yeah, just kind of connecting all the paths over here. It's always a bit tricky, to be honest, but as you can see, if you just got the hang of it, it should be pretty easy. And just connect all the stuff over here so our staff members can use this area. It's not important for the tutorial, but now you know about all the buildings, we can start actually build, because facilities are done, everything we need, and I want to make sure that this looks a lot nicer, right? Because if our guests go along here, they don't want to see this ugly bare bone area whatsoever, right? And what you want to make sure with buildings always is make sure from where people would look at this area. So as you can see from over here, they don't even see that much of these buildings, you know? You don't even need to spend too much time on the roofing over here because the front is already covered. The other way around. You want to spend some more time on the roofing because the rest is, you know, covered anyways. And if we go over here, you can see that the left hand side is more relevant than the right hand side. Okay, so this in mind, we are going to build. Now, again, as I said, I want to keep it very, very simple here. So what we want to do, we start off with the construction of our basic building. You can see in this tab over here, you have a lot of different areas what you can use. You have architecture, signs, lights, props, centerpieces, special effects, and art shapes. They have all different purpose. We are going to talk about them while we do it. We start with the architecture, and then you can see there's a new tab opening with some more options. Wonderful, isn't it? So first thing we are going to do, we are going to look for walls, because this is what we want to do. And in the wall section you have the arches, which contains some doors, and we are going to use them doors. I guess they are in the wall pieces, right? Yeah, they are wall pieces. There you can see this is the concrete wall door, and we are going to use not the concrete one. We are going to use, because I want to make this a bit more Asian looking at the end. Where do we have this one? As you can see, there's a whole lot of stuff in here. I want to have the plaster wall. And where is the plaster wall? There we go. This is the plaster wall. So I'm just building these doors, as you can see, pretty simple. And then I'm using the plaster wall to round off the building. It is very simple. You know, it's very, very that simple. You can't do anything wrong here. Just build the building as I just did over here. Now, I wanted to keep them open. The only thing I wanted to do, I want to have like a little bit of an overhanging roof here. So what I do, I look for some arches and the plaster arches and do it this way. to create some kind of open area already. I'm gonna you know, show you why I did this. So we can also change the color of the plaster. Do we want this? I don't know. Do we want this? I think I'm gonna go with this color actually, because I like this very subtle, it's like kind of subtle reddish color. I like it, to be honest, but I want this to look a lot more interesting. You know, we want to have this like a little bit of an Asian building. Okay, cool. So there are some kind of cool roofs in here. You can always go and also go for the theme and say, okay, we want to have East Asia. Okay, so this gives you all the props. I would always recommend to have all the props in. You can use search for it, but I figured that most of the items are useful for many, many different things, and therefore I wouldn't just kind of category-wise just delete them by just declicking the filter. You always want to have them visually available for you because they might help you in certain cases. Okay, so what we want to have is the painted clay roof. I want to have like a clay roof over here. I don't know why exactly, but let's use the clay roof. So as I said, I wanted to have this one as an overhanging roof over here. So this is done. Okay, cool. But I want to also have a nicer roof over this whole area. Now what I do is I decrease the grid size. We haven't talked about that. You have control of the grid. You can change it from 4 meter width to 2 meters. That means the steps in which you're using these pieces are smaller. Cool, isn't it? So we are using this to create some kind of nicer looking appeal to it. So what I want to do, I want to have like, I think I'm going to start off with this roof and build this like that. And then I also want to have this corner piece. Oh, that's the wrong one. You always want to make sure that you have the same angle activated. Okay. And then make sure, right? Make sure that you guys keep an eye on the grid. You always want to have like a 2 or like a 4 meter grid to use these pieces, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to fit them in. Then you would have overlapping, as I show you right now. Be overlapping, not that nice. Okay, now I'm just putting in these pieces simply as it is, like so. And then I want to create in the middle a bit of a more Asian look, and this works by using a bit of a more steep roof. There we go. This is what I did. It already has a little bit of an Asian appeal to it, and I just figured that I don't like how this turned out, because we can still use the same roof, right? Again, that was a little bit of intention, because I wanted to show you how to easily now copy this side to this side. But before doing so, we have an open space here, right? And it would be smart to have this closed off before you copy it over, because you would do the work double, you know? And you don't need to do this. You need to kind of, you know, be as effective as possible. And I don't want to have the same kind of plaster over here. I want to have like a bit of a variant in here. And I figured this could be the right one to use, because that looks like it fits in here, right? Okay, let's try this. And oh boy, it does fit in, and it actually also looks kind of decent with the stone texture, doesn't it? Cool. So we can now select the pieces by simply clicking them. Hold down Shift to select multiple pieces. Now I click this one, and you have to be in a group. We are now in a building group. You can see this by the yellowish outlines. It kind of shows you that you are in a lovely building group, and this helps because in the group you can select pieces. Okay, cool. Now click the different pieces you want to have. These are the 4 pieces in my case I want to have. And then you can click Control D for duplicate. Control D will duplicate your thing. As you can see, you have the same thing. Now you can rotate by pressing the Y or Z key. And then you're just rotating it, pressing the Z key, and you're good to go. Just move it into the position you want to have. Done. Isn't that great? You have created the same roof on the other hand side without actually doing it, because you just used the tools in the game. Okay, that's awesome. Now, there's one thing I don't like. I like how this turned out with the overhanging roof over here. Now, this looks pretty stupid. I want to have this all moved in a bit more. Now, again, you can also just copy things over, or you can move it. You just choose these things. You're not happy with the position of the roof, just click M, and then you can drag it. Now, as you can see, damn, my step is too big. You can just simply change the grid size again, and you have a 2 meter step here. That's better. Nice, done. This opening section in the middle you can easily get rid of by selecting those pieces again, copy, duplicate with a Control D, put it in the middle, and it's done. How cool is that? Okay, cool. Now, as the roof is done, let's go to the next point. Okay, so the next point will be detailing the building. Now we have the basic shape of the building. You have learned about everything. We've looked at the sidelines, right? Okay, this is all fine. You can't see too much from over here. Everything is nice. Everything is fine. But now you want to make sure that this building looks a bit nicer. Okay, so there are some simple tricks to just use and make this look immediately a lot better. So what you can always do is use pillars. You know, pillars are something very, I don't know why they are working this way, but pillars are basically working wonders. They always create a bit more of depth, a bit more of interesting look and stuff. So I want to use them to the edges over here to give this building a bit of a more supported look. So I'm moving them over. Now we are using the gizmo. I have worked a lot on the grid right now. Now I'm using pieces that are not on the grid. So you can see there's not the grid displayed for us right now, which is why we can use these pieces a lot more easy now by manipulating their position in a complete 360-degree area. We don't need to care about the freaking grid or grid size or whatever. If you want to duplicate these pieces, you can do this by selecting them again, as I did with holding down Shift, but now you don't press Ctrl D, you do press Ctrl and X. This will create a duplicate of duplicating these pieces, and then you can see you can move them along with this wonderful gizmo over here. Now as we move them over, they will be in the same exact position, moving alongside the axis you've just chosen. Okay, cool, we've done this. It looks fairly nice, but one thing that stood out to me, we don't have that Asian appeal to the roof, you know, these kind of roundish things to the roof. So now what can we do? What could we do about this? We can always use different pieces to create this. I want to go with this roundish thing first. This is like a little wooden post. And what I do, I just go in and use it. Now, we've always used the angle snap. Now I want to be a bit more creative, and I deactivate the angle snap by hitting spacebar, and it should deactivate the angle snap. As you can see, it is deactivated. Now I can move again without having the restrictions of the angle snapping. I can now move it on the full 360 degrees of the circle. Now let's create a very subtle step each time we move it. As you can see, here we go. That's nice looking. So this creates a wonderful, lovely little look, as you would expect it from the Asian kind of style stuff. Now I want a bit more detail in here. So we just, you know, now I am not yet an expert of where exactly all the pieces are. And this is why I only recommend to just search for various pieces. I figured that this piece over here could look nice as a supporting piece in the middle. As you can see, this is some kind of Indian wall light bracket. But again, this is exactly what I just said. Don't use the same, or like don't filter by the area, because sometimes pieces are so good that you can use them in different settings, and this is why I always recommend to keep them on. Now, I think there could be something else in here. Maybe we need to have like a little bit of a plank. And the wonderful thing about Planet Zoo is the pieces they use are so much smaller than they have been in Planet Coaster, and this helps you create a lot nicer looking things. I wanted this very subtle effect on top here to make it look a bit detailed, and I think this is what I want to go with. It's a bit more like, you know, it's a bit more kind of freestyle I did here. It might not even be too accurate, but it looks decent. So you don't even need to make that much. You know, this is now a little detail and you can copy it over. Simply go in and just select with this box over here the pieces. You can see sometimes it needs a bit more, and you can click with Shift and you have them. Now, I would recommend, if you want to copy it over, you can use Ctrl X again, and then you move it all over. Make sure to have angle snap activated, and then just rotate it 180 degrees. Move it into the same direction. As you can see over here, I move it so that the bracket is actually connecting to this area. Done. Wonderful. You have a little bit of detail over here now, and the building immediately looks better. What I always recommend to do is also to get some kind of stuff in here, because this looks pretty bare bone, doesn't it? Now, we don't have them flat roofs in here as we had them in Planet Coaster. There are some, but not too many. So I want to use this plank over here. The problem is I can't recolor it, so I always want to use this and see how it does look from the bottom part. It looks fairly good to me. It looks fine. And now just move it in. Make sure that you adjust the grid size to what you need, and then you can just build this over here pretty simply. Just click them in. I created 3 of them now to make sure that I have them. Select them all, and since I'm lazy, I'm just copying them over. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's one more. Boom, in. Everything is done. It already looks a lot nicer. Cool. So we've done this. Now let's create a little bit more of detail here by adding some ground, yeah, well, I would call it texture, because I want to make sure that this looks a bit nicer. And also a bit more Asian. So you can use various pieces. It's always pretty handy to search for some nice stuff. I figured I have some cool stuff in here that I want to use, and this is the timber railing, which you can just use down here. Make sure that you fit this to the wall. Here we go. Easy. Okay, this is done. Now you have a bit of detailing in. It always helps also to create maybe like a little bit of a pillar. And I want to go and create this somewhat in the middle here. I think I'm fairly happy with having it here. And just create it like that. And let's also move this to the top, so to give it a bit more interesting look to the top. Cool. This is done. Awesome. I like how this looks. You know, gives the whole thing a bit more of depth. Now, the corners look pretty ugly, right? Because they don't really have a nice corner piece. So I want to use the same piece over here to make sure that I round off the corner. And I've done the same thing. Awesome. Now, the whole stuff is done. I think I like how this looks from this side already, right? I've said if the guests go past, this side is more important. So what I want to do now is give this same thing the look. Obviously, we can't use these pieces, so I'm only selecting the pieces we can use. Have selected them all. Control X again to duplicate. Now only rotate by 90 degrees. Here we go. Move it in as you are happy with the position. You can drag it in again. Now, make sure to use it where you really want to use it, because if you go here, it makes sense to have this connected to this corner piece as well, because that kind of creates the same look. And then just click it and move it all over. Now, I did one mistake over here, which I'm going to fix in a second. This is the pillar we have from the side. I can delete this and use this little bit thinner one over here. Awesome, created, done. So this is pretty nice. We have a lovely little staff building. There's nothing fancy about this one, but it already looks pretty okay-ish, right? So this is done. We will cover this up in the next episode with foliage. I don't want to do too much more. You could create a fence or whatever in front if you want. We will do this with foliage. Don't worry about this, but I want to do one more thing about building to show you guys how this is simply done, and create a fencing in here. I want to have a fence, but an own fence. You know, I don't want to use the in-game fence. I want to create my own one. Now I go to construction again and search for a basic piece I want to use. I figured that this one's pretty interesting to start with, because I felt this could be a cool piece. So let's see if we can recolor this. Hey, that's pretty cool. We can. So let's change this color if the game allows me to. It really doesn't at the moment. Let's do this again. There we go. Okay, that was maybe my bad. But I want to go with like nearly fully brown. Here we go, because I want to have this as a simple piece. And I want to now make this somewhat Asian looking, or at least that it fits to this area. So let's use this piece again. And we need another piece. So we hit Control X. And you can see it creates this again. Now we have 2 pieces and I want to have a group, because building in a group is always better. Now I select them too. There is the option to merge them into a scenery group. We haven't talked about this, but you can always merge stuff together into one group by selecting them with the select tool and then click merge into scenery group. Done. How cool is this? Cool. We have done this. Now let's see if there is any piece we can use. And it would be clever to use the same pieces we have used a little bit beforehand. Now, this seems to be big for me. Maybe I don't want to use this then. This one is also too big. Okay, is there anything we can use over here? I figured this one looks fairly cool to be used. So I want to make sure that this is somewhat in here in the middle, which is nice. And now what we need is kind of a railing as well. I want to have this one as the railing. Oops, I forgot to have angle snap. Sometimes I'm just stupid. Select the piece again. Make sure that angle snap is activated, because, oh, well, this time it already has the same, the right rotation. Here we go. Awesome. This is what we want to have. Cool. This is our little fence. And now as this group is done, you can move this group around, which is pretty cool. Now, we don't need to do this now externally. We can just bring this into the position where we want to have it. And then just simply move it into the exact position, which would be this one. Open the group. By the way, you can open the group by pressing the R key on your keyboard, which will then make you move into the thing. Sometimes the gizmo is a bit finicky, so you want to make sure that you use it to your favor by just, you know, try to select as many pieces. Sometimes this is easier to create a very good gizmo orientation. But yeah, so, you know, what we do, we just try now to build this fence as nice as possible. Don't want to spend too much time on this now, because you basically, I think you got the idea, right? Select everything again, just move it over. You can see pretty quickly, after just creating the very basic shape of this fence, we created a very nice looking fence in basically no time. Actually super easy, no big deal. You can always use all the pieces to get creative. And as you can see, we used now African pieces and Asian pieces to create this fencing over here. It looks nice, doesn't it? So I'm very happy with the fence over here. Now, the last bit I always would do, make sure that you put in some guest stuff first, because this always gives you a hint of how this area can look like. So there's some cool East Asia canopy. I would also recommend to sometimes have these kind of things in. I also figured that this piece, can I also, okay, that's pretty interesting. Maybe we can create some cool stuff with it. Huh. I feel like I like this quite a bit, so let's do this as a last thing to show you. You can always hit the V key on your keyboard to align this to a certain height. If you press the V key again, it will always remain at the same height. And if you press it again, you can see it doesn't align again. So if you move it down, it will always stay here and not align. Press V again. It automatically creates this aligning option for you. It's not always usable, but anyways, I want to make this a bit more like so, and put this thing over here. One other one goes in here, and I don't want to destroy too much of the view, you know. I want to make more of these on top of this hill. One more here, one more here, and one more here. And I just figured that it would maybe make sense to have the same fence on top. So let's go in and select a few of those pieces and copy them over. This time we use Control D, because this will let you move this a bit more free, and rotate this with the Z key. Now we are just creating this fence on top of this building, this little hill. And now, because I want to make sure it's the exact same position, I use Control X again and put this into the exact position. So we have created, in basically less than 25 minutes, this building and this wonderful looking area already. Now, as this is done, all the facilities are connected, let's move on to the last episode, which is foliage and detailing, until we finally have our wonderful animals in this area. So see you in the next one. If you have more questions to a building or whatnot, make sure to drop them in the comments down below. We see each other in the next episode. Stay tight, have a good day, and bye-bye. Alrighty guys, thank you for watching this video. I really do appreciate that. As always, make sure to check out also my social media channels. You can find me everywhere under @Rudi Rennkamel. Also, big thanks to the crew. You can see it on the left hand side right now. And as always, if you want to see more, you click that card on the top right. And if you want to stick around because you like the stuff you've just saw, whatever, you know what I mean, just click that sub button, which is to the bottom right of the screen right now. But everything else I can say is have a great time and see you next time. Bye guys.